Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar tonight, From Gap Years to Degrees, Studying Abroad in English Across Europe. So we're going to give everybody about 30 seconds to get into the webinar, and then we will promptly get started. All right, got a couple of people joining us. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Looks great. So as you're joining us, feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A. We will be doing some Q&A at the end, so we want to make sure that we answer all of your questions to the best of our ability. But hopefully very conversational, and you'll be able to get some of your burning questions answered tonight. All right. So we're going to get started here. Again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Alyson Campbell. I'm a college planning consultant with Estrela Consulting. I've been working with Estrela for about 3 years, but I have over a decade's worth of experience in higher ed. And I am so excited and honored to welcome. We have 4 representatives with us tonight. Unfortunately, our 5th one from Franklin University had a family emergency, so she's unable to join us. But I wanted to welcome Katey Foley from American University of Paris, Cait Hoffman from the American University of Rome, Gabriela Mendez Madera from Middlesex University, London, and Tara Murphy from London Metropolitan University. So our table of contents or agenda for tonight is we're going to talk to you about why studying abroad. It's becoming extremely popular right now, and even though you might be someone who is watching this who lives abroad or whatnot, this is going to be catering mostly to US or domestic students that are looking for opportunities to study abroad. So we're hopefully going to give you a few reasons to be doing that. Also, we'll give you some logistics and resources. So if you're thinking, how can I even make this possible? What are some of the first steps that I need to be taking? Hopefully we can provide some tangible resources for that. And then we're going to meet the universities or unis when I studied abroad in college, I was in Australia, and they just called it uni. So I don't know if that's a popular term in Europe as well, but want to give an opportunity to introduce all of these ladies and the universities that they're representing. And like I said, we'll reserve some time at the end for Q&As. So like I mentioned to start, why do we want to study abroad? And I found global experience and lifelong impact. And as someone who has studied abroad, I did a semester in Australia my junior year of college. That could not be more true. Just having that experience as a 20-year-old to go out into the world and experience a new culture and have the ability to travel on my own, have to make decisions, kind of just grow up in a capsule. Most of these ladies that will be speaking with us tonight are going to be talking about opportunities to take your full secondary education abroad. So, doing a full degree program at one of their universities. But, we'll acknowledge as well that there are opportunities if you are at a US university to maybe do a semester or a J term or a May term or a summer session at these universities. So there's a variety of different options. But again, we're going to focus a little bit more on tonight the opportunity to take your schooling after high school abroad. So, should you stay in the US or should you go abroad? And as we all know, it's a very interesting time here in America. We're seeing that a lot of students are inquiring about this. So they might not be ready to take that first step, but there's a lot of interest in learning more about how this could happen. And like I mentioned earlier, the opportunity for independence and personal growth is paramount when you have the opportunity to study abroad. So also having the opportunity to completely immerse yourself in a culture. So living there, learning the language, getting involved in the traditions, the food, the commerce, having opportunities to work maybe for employers or internships in another country is just an absolute fantastic opportunity. Like I said, increased and enhanced career prospects. I did some research as I was preparing for this webinar, and it's incredible the amount of employers that really want an opportunity or want students that have this type of experience. They have global experience, they've worked abroad. It's just one of those things that can't really be taught in a classroom, and it's going to be something that will level you up as you pursue postgraduate work. it can be a money saver, which I think can also be a con. You think that you're traveling abroad, you're studying abroad, it's got to be expensive. American college is expensive. And we're finding that in a lot of these European countries and some of the programs that they have, it's very direct. So you might be able to do a degree program in 3 years instead of 4. You might not have the flexibility. Some of the representatives here will talk to you about how their colleges are maybe a little bit more Americanized, where there is like a little bit more of a liberal arts component to it. But a lot of our universities abroad will be, direct into the medical field or direct into engineering or direct into business. You don't have as much flexibility. So it can be a money saver if you know exactly what you want to do. And obviously travel opportunities. So when we talk about Franklin, I know that's a big component of what they do is their academic travel program. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, there are cons. Of course, culture shock. If you've never left the US, if you are maybe not ready for a country that doesn't speak English, or you are a very picky eater, or you have a hard time with change, this is a big con that must be addressed. Obviously, language barrier. There could be financial strain if we have representatives from London, Paris, and Rome. It is not cheap to live in these cities. They're amazing. There's so much fun stuff to do, but you also need to be able to afford to live there. And I'm sure they're going to talk a little bit about that. Homesickness, obviously, if you're someone who struggles with this, this could be something that needs to be addressed because it's not easy to get home. It's not inexpensive to get home. Academic transitions or challenges, that's something I can speak to. That was probably the hardest part of me being halfway around the world was honestly just the citations for papers and the expectations of how things were to be presented. There was no crash course in that. So, the first class I took, I got a D in my first presentation. I've never had a D in my life, but I cited apparently the entire research paper incorrectly, and he was just like, so I wish I would have known that, but I survived. You live and you learn. And then lastly, political or government instability. So obviously that's something that's a little bit out of our control and things can change very rapidly. So being aware of that, obviously not being naive to the fact that this could change. And I feel like the the cities that are represented and the countries that are represented here are relatively neutral and it's pretty stable for the most part. So hopefully that's something you won't experience if you do choose to look into some of these universities, but it's something that we must address. So a few study abroad stats, and again, this is pertaining to US students. According to NAFSA, during the 2023 or 2022-2023 academic year, I have to move our faces because I can't read it. Only about 1% of US students enrolled in higher education were studying abroad. So we know that, obviously we're coming off the tail end of the pandemic. There is a lot of interest in studying abroad. If we jumped down to that third bulletin, there was a independent study that was done by The Hill, and they said that they surveyed US college students and approximately 72% indicated they had interest in studying abroad. It's one of those things at Estrela that we really encourage our students to look into. We know that it's a differentiating experience. It's life-changing. And when, maybe you're married and you have kids and you get into a full-time job, that opportunity to freely travel like that is really challenging. So having the opportunity to do that through postgraduate or post-secondary work is a really, really cool opportunity. So, and then it said during that same study, it was noted that about 8% of US college graduates had completed some form of study abroad. So that's pretty interesting. And then, like I just mentioned, the demographic of US students, since the 2024 election, the inquiries about pursuing a bachelor's or master's degree abroad has jumped significantly. So again, I think this is a trend that we're going to continue to see grow. And hopefully if there's someone that's considering this, but you're not quite sure how to start, or if you want something that feels a little bit more safer or Americanized, but abroad, these will be some good options for you. And then I just wanted to highlight this open door graphic that shows some of the leading US study abroad destinations, Italy being number one. UK being number two, Spain, France, Ireland, Japan. So you'll see that there. Again, just to kind of bring some awareness to that. And I was just in Italy a few months ago. A couple of the towns that we visited had universities, and that was just really cool. We were in Bologna, we were in Perugia, so just a very in Rome as well. So a lot of vibrant college opportunities in Italy and the UK as well. So how to study abroad. If you have this as something that you think you'd be interested in, we want to give you again some tips and tricks and some tangible steps to do so. So you can study abroad just in your traditional American university program. So you could do a full year or a semester, which are probably are pretty common as like the semester program. But we also see that there are shorter term programs or faculty-led programs. So if that is something that interests you and you're, like I'm not really ready to like fully live abroad for 3 or 4 years, this is a great option. Most American universities have this. You could do it through a third party. There's CIEE or CAA, Kappa, or Virto. I've heard of Virto a few times. I know some colleges have some almost like secondary entry programs through Virto. You can study at a foreign university, which is what we're going to discuss tonight, and just enrolling directly. Or you could take a gap year. So that is something that is a little bit less set up by a college. It's maybe a little bit more like self-discovery. You could travel for the year and just live abroad versus attend a university abroad. Or you can do a US exchange program, and typically this is through maybe your high school, through Rotary. So if you're a really go-getter, really a go-getter, and you want to do something before you get to college, this would be a great option. All right, and now practical steps and considerations. We encourage you to research programs and destinations. Again, we talked a little bit about the destinations and just making sure that it's like safe for you, it's affordable for you, it's somewhere that you want to go, but also researching their academic programs, making sure that this is going to help you and align with the goals that you have for your future. Establishing a budget and managing finances. We want to make sure that, again, this is affordable, that you have enough opportunity to save. Nothing is worse than going abroad and not having the money to do the fun things that all of the other kids are doing. So we want to make sure you have that. Making sure you work with these ladies if you are interested in one of their campuses to have the necessary documents. That is, something that requires some runway. You want to make sure that you have enough time to secure a passport. What type of information do you need for a visa? Insurance and medical forms, and that might be different at each university. So making sure that you're very, very clear and set in those areas. And then consideration for academic equivalency or accreditation. So if you're at a US university, how does that host institution that you're going to, like how can you get some of those credits back towards a major or a minor or a certificate? And then also making sure that the programs that you're seeking abroad are accredited. Again, you want to make sure that if you are, especially are in some sort of line of work or program that would require accreditation, that you have that opportunity to earn that through the work that you're doing abroad. All right, the time has come, so I am excited to introduce you to our representatives from our 4 universities, and then I'll step in for Franklin at the end. And we're going to start with Katey Foley, who is the Assistant Director for U.S. Admissions at the American University of Paris. So thank you so much for joining us, Katey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you want to just start by introducing yourself, how long you've worked at AUP, and then give us a little bit of like background from some of the stuff on the slide, and then I'll ask a few more questions after that.
Sure. So my name is Katey Foley. I'm the Assistant Director of U.S. Admissions for the Midwest. So I'm located in the Kansas City area. I have been with AUP for 2 years, and it's been a very fun experience. I travel all over the Midwest during like September and October to meet high school students and attend fairs, and it's a very fun place. So, to talk about our enrollment, so we have about 1,200 students in our undergraduate program. We are a 4-year university, so something to keep in mind, and we are a small liberal arts university. Of the 1,200 students, I would say it's about 50-50, so 50% of those students are going to be coming from the United States. The other 50 are going to be rest of world, and we're literally talking rest of world. We have about 105 different nationalities represented on campus this fall, so very diverse, very international. Our student to faculty ratio, we are about 14 to 16, depending, but for every one teacher in class. So pretty small, intimate classrooms, which is kind of nice. Our location, we are urban. We are in the heart of the 7th arrondissement, so 7th neighborhood. That's where the Eiffel Tower is. We are about a 10-minute walk to the base of the Eiffel Tower. There's definitely some of our classrooms that are like almost next door to the base of the Eiffel Tower. So you can see the Eiffel Tower throughout campus, which is very cool. Some of our top programs, international business, our international law, which is that international and comparative politics, psychology and fashion studies. Those are easily our top four. And I'd also say computer science is a, a fifth one that's really growing quickly.
Thank you so much. That's so cool that you can see the Eiffel Tower all around campus. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've never been to Paris. That's somewhere that's definitely on my bucket list. So, you giving that description is very incentivizing for someone, again, who has never been there, is thinking about attending, which is really, really cool. And I love the representation that you talked about. I think, one of the perks of going abroad and studying abroad is the ability, obviously, to meet new people from all over the world and really expand your horizons and, all the
Mm,
cross-cultural opportunities. So I appreciate
absolutely.
that. Can you tell us about what it's like to live on campus? So do you have residence halls or are students, required to kind of find it out on their own?
Yeah, great question. So we are in our campus is located in the 7th. We have housing that we provide. We can provide for all 4 years if you'd like, but all freshmen are required to live with us for at least 1 year. And the housing is distributed around Paris. And it's a kind of you kind of tell us what you would like in housing, and we have like almost like a menu. So we have residences that are only for AUP students where you could have single studios with like a small kitchenette, bedroom, bathroom, everything there. We have more of well, what you would think of maybe like a typical college experience where you have maybe a couple roommates and you're sharing a kitchen. We also have two almost like homes. They're on the Champs-Élysées. And so that's where the Arc de Triomphe is. It's very, very beautiful, but one residence can fit 13 people and another one can fit 16. And so you're having your own bedroom or shared bedroom, but a very large kitchen that you're sharing with everyone in the house. So we find the housing for you. Something that's maybe a bit different as well is you're going to have a commute to campus because of where our housing is located. So when you're thinking about Paris or maybe just your college experience, we're not a bubble campus. So you also have to kind of just think about your commute. Are you the kind of student that you like to get up in the morning and, walk for 30 minutes to campus? Or are you kind of someone who waits until the last minute to get out of bed and you're always kind of rushing to class? That kind of determine maybe where you want to be at in Paris in regards to getting to campus on time. So,
Well, I appreciate that because I think, that would be something I like to watch House Hunters quite a bit. And I feel like that is a very stark reality is living in these city centers. And then, I know that, sometimes abroad they don't have dormitory setups. So you're expected to find your own housing and that's just out of the budget, for many people. So the fact that you help students find that, because I think that's a huge source of anxiety. If you're a parent that's looking to send your student abroad for the first time at 18 years old, is where are they going to live? Is it going to be safe? Can we afford it? And the fact that they are with other students, I think that's a good piece of community that
mhm.
needs to be there, especially, to send a student abroad for the first time.
For sure. And most of our residence halls, you could call them, they all have a RA. So there's someone on campus or in the resident hall who can, communicate with campus if they need to, or if a student has a question and they need something quickly, there's someone there. Or if a parent is like, hey, my student hasn't answered my calls today. I just want to check on them. Have you seen them? It's someone that's a really easy point of contact. So,
Okay, great. And
yeah.
then lastly, before we move on, can you talk a little bit about affordability? So from a merit-based or need-based perspective, how does that work for someone who's looking to apply?
Yeah, so we have merit-based scholarships as well as institutional aid. We also accept the FAFSA, which I think is really, really awesome. So we accept the FAFSA. So when you apply for the FAFSA, you may see that you're eligible for a Pell Grant. Unfortunately, Pell Grants cannot be applied to institutions outside of the United States. So we are not Pell Grant eligible, but we can accept the FAFSA. So federal loans are possible, as well as merit-based, and then you can then apply for needs-based in the spring, once everything has started moving FAFSA wise. I think FAFSA you apply in like December, January, and then we get the information in the spring. So
Okay.
but yes, I would say if you are someone who's interested in AUP, always applying early is better because that's when we would award the most merit is going to be earlier in the cycle. So if you apply in the fall, you'd get the most amount of merit money if you are eligible for that. So
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I've added Katie's email on the slide as well. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to shoot her any personal questions you might have, and we'll save some time at the end as well. So moving on, we have Cait Hoffman, who's the Assistant Director of U.S. Admission Operations at the American University of Rome. So thank you so much for joining us, Cait.
Thanks for having me.
So if you want to speak a little bit about some of the demographic information that you provided on the slide, and then some fun facts about AUR, and I'll have some questions for you after that.
Definitely. Very similarly to AUP, we are a U.S. institution. We are located in Rome. We're a small liberal arts college. Our undergraduate enrollment is 800. So think a very tiny institution, someplace where everyone's going to recognize you, know your name, that sort of vibe when you walk onto campus. Our student to faculty ratio is 17:1, so we mostly have discussion-based learning, small class sizes. We do have, I always tell our students, your largest class will never be larger than about 50 because that's the biggest room we have on our campus. That is perfect for a student who's looking for a small institution. Our location, I don't think you can beat it in Rome. So we're on the top of the Janiculum Hill in the Monteverde district in Rome, and that's Rome's highest hill. And so we have some of the best views in Rome, and I just think it's the best neighborhood. Some of our top programs are business administration as well as international relations and global politics. That's actually all one major. And then after that, we do have an up and coming program in film in particular, but some really cool programs like archaeology and classics and travel and tourism management as well. We do have a lot of international diversity on our campus as well. We have about 56 countries represented in our small student body. Yeah, so it's not uncommon to walk on to the garden and then just hear Italian, English, maybe Ukrainian, just a lot of different languages in the air.
That's great. And I noted too, like my fun fact was you mentioned the location, and again, having these very city-centric represented schools on our webinar panel tonight. I mean, it sounds like you are really in the heart of it all, which is fantastic for students that are looking to do everything and experience everything.
Absolutely. I can walk to central Rome from our campus in about 25 minutes if I want to go look at the Colosseum or something like that. And if I don't feel like walking, I can hop on a bus and be there in about 12 minutes.
Yeah, definitely very walkable city. We walked all over Rome. It
Yeah.
was fantastic. So can you talk to us about the selectivity? So is it, in America, I think that we really hyper focus on the selectivity of colleges and how hard it is to get in. Do you find that it would be harder for students to get into AUR?
So actually, no, I would not consider our, selectivity to be super, super high at AUR. We are a test blind institution in terms of SAT and ACT. We're really doing a holistic review of our applicants. We're focused not only on academics, we want to see at least a 3.0 unweighted GPA for admissibility, but we're also very largely focused on fit. We are aware that we are not your average selection for a U.S. student, so we are interested in understanding the motivation for why a student would choose to apply and enroll at AUR. So fit is very, very important, as is the academic background, and then test blind.
Okay. And then how would a student apply? Would you use the Common App or an institutional app?
So we have both Common App and Institutional App on our website. Either one is great. We are, like I said, test blind, so no standardized tests required. A couple short essays, one letter of recommendation. If we have any concerns on your application, we may ask to do an interview, but it's not required.
All right. Thank you so much, Cait. And her email is listed as well. So if you have any added questions for American University of Rome, you can reach out to Cait that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we are moving to London with our two London representatives. So we'll start with Tara Murphy, who is the Senior International Officer at London Metropolitan University. So welcome, Tara.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Tara. I'm the Senior International Officer. You can hear from the accent. I'm from London, but I'm based on the west coast of Canada. So London Metropolitan is what we would call medium size in the UK. It's about, in total number of students, about 12,000 across 3 campuses. So you have 3 central London campuses. One is at Holloway Road. If you're an Arsenal football fan, it's like 1 minute from the stadium. If you're a Harry Potter fan, it's very close to King's Cross. We have another one in Aldgate, which is about a 10-minute walk from Tower Bridge, that bridge that opens and closes. And then the last one is Shoreditch, which is essentially in between the two. So very central. In terms of our top programs, we have 6 different schools, which range from human sciences to business. But some of our most popular, particularly with American students, are things like psychology, fashion marketing, digital media, music business. And what I'd say we're most known for is being very practical in how we teach. So we have a lot of fake rooms. We have free fake hospital rooms for our nurses. We have a fake trading room for our business students, a translation room for our translators. And we like lots of fake things so that you can do a lot of practical based study. We're known as one of the most kind of diverse universities within the UK. And I use the word diverse kind of across all areas, whether that's ethnicity, age. We're very, very proud of it because we host the Centre of Equity and Inclusion, which is about supporting that. So recently we put 15 million towards racial justice within education. We do things like partnering with HBCUs in the USA. We hosted, last week was Pride in London, so it turns out that we've hosted the first after party for Pride back in the 70s. So we have lots of kind of links to that.
Yeah, as I was doing research on London Metropolitan University, just on your YouTube page and a lot of your social media and your public facing materials, it is very evident that you are champions of inclusivity and diversity, and that, I love that it's just very bold, and, this is who we are. So, for students, that is also something that we need to be very mindful of is are there schools and locations abroad that will be very welcoming to students that are looking for that affinity or looking for a community to be a part of. So thank you for bringing that up and confirming that for us. Can you talk a little bit about your housing situation? So again, London being a pretty expensive place to live, and you mentioned 3 different campuses. So how does that work?
Yep. Great question. So there's kind of 2 options that students tend to go down. They either go down the student halls route. In the UK, we say halls to mean dormitories. In the UK, and this I'd say for most UK institutions, it's very rare to share a bedroom. You may normally share a house, but you typically get your own room. And so you can go down the student halls route. London Met does not own those. We work with a third-party provider. Fun fact, London has the most universities of any city in the world. There are 40 universities based in the city. And so we kind of have a lot of shared accommodation. So I always talk about students being both a London Met student and a London student. And there's 2 variations to that, because you'll be living with students from London Met, LSE, UCL, depending on the kind of areas that you pick. We have a big range of partners that we work with. And again, it's kind of like a menu. Do you want more of a studio apartment? That's going to be much more expensive. Are you happy to share a bathroom with someone? That will bring down the price. Gabby will probably talk about this as well. In London, we kind of talk about what zone we're in. So, you'll say the 7th or something in Paris. We'll say I live in zone 1, zone 2. Zone 1 is essentially the inner circle, so where Big Ben is, where the Tower of London is, all those famous places you've seen. And then zone 2 is the next circle, and then zone 3 the next, and it continues on. Traditionally, the higher the zone, the cheaper it is, because the further out you are. On the other side, you could choose to go down just the private housing route. This is where you look to find rentals with either people you know or people we introduce you to on our website. I would say traditionally what happens is that students will live in the halls first year, and then they've made friends and they'll go off in their second and third years with people that we've met. Accommodation really can range because it is London. You could live like a millionaire, you could live like a student in student halls. I normally tell students to budget around the £200 mark and per week, sorry, and then it kind of can go up and down from there. There's ways to make it a bit cheaper, there's ways to make it very much more expensive, but that's normally my like kind of budget area I give people.
Okay. And you mentioned, you said about 3 years of housing. So would you say that most of the programs, academic programs, are 3-year programs?
Yeah, almost all of our undergraduate programs are 3 years, and you'll find that in, confusingly, the UK is one country made up of 4 countries. In 3 of those countries, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales, we normally have 3-year undergraduates. In Scotland, it tends to be 4. The only time that we normally have 4-year undergraduates is if you choose to do a foundation year, which is kind of like a year before you start. We call it a year zero. It's kind of like a leveling up year. It may allow you to get some more information in your specific subject because you apply directly to your subject. You don't do any gen eds. Or sometimes students will do a placement or a sandwich year, which is essentially between their second and third, they take a year out and they'll go and study abroad somewhere else, or they'll go and work in the industry.
That's great. That's really good to know. And I mean, I think it's really hard as a 16, 17, 18-year-old to know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think that the experience, we have some go-getters, some of our students at Estrela that have done internships and they've done job shadows and things like that that give them a little bit of a lens into what they might want to do. But 90% of high school students think that they have an idea, but typically have no clue. They've never stepped foot in that space. They've never tried it out. They know it because their parents do it or a grandparent or a neighbor, and they see that they can make money or, whatever. So I think it's very interesting that I want to say risky, but for me to, tell a student, like, you have to know exactly what it is that you want to do. And you're going to be very hyper focused. And for maybe 20% of those students, like, that's great. They don't want to like mess with the liberal arts core and having to take an art class and a foreign language. They just want to get right to it. But that year zero is very interesting, or like that sandwich year that you mentioned, that gives them an opportunity to really do a little bit of discovery before jumping right into that or making that final decision and having some flexibility. So thank you so much, Tara. That was wonderful. All right. So Gabriela, I'm going to move on to you. And I know we talked a lot about London, so I'm going to try to ask you some different questions about your university. So if you want to just give us an overview real fast, this is definitely the largest one that we have on our panel tonight.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Gabriela. I'm the Americas and Caribbean Regional Manager at Middlesex University, London. Fun fact, I was also a student at Middlesex, so I'm familiar with the whole process of studying abroad. And I'm based right outside of New York City. I've been working for Middlesex for like 9 years now. So if you have any questions, I am your best point of contact. Yeah, so we have a really big undergraduate enrollment across the nation, and in our London campus specifically, it's a little bit less than that. So you won't see so many students, but definitely across our other campuses. Which are they? We have campus in Dubai and also in Mauritius. Our student to faculty ratio is about 18:1. We do have larger classrooms, but typically those would be followed, or a huge lecture would be followed by smaller seminars of like 20 or 30 students, so that we can incentivize discussion and things like that. We're located in Hendon. That's an area about 30 minutes north of central London by tube. And it's still sort of an urban campus, but we're not right in the city center. So as Tara mentioned, it's easy to get around. Transportation is great, but most importantly, especially for those of us on a student budget, rent is a lot more affordable and things are just a lot more affordable in the area. If you want to live by Buckingham Palace, you're welcome to do that. But if you want to be a little bit more affordably, then you can move by the university. We do have campus accommodation as well. our top programs are business management programs. We have different concentrations in accounting and finance, marketing, etc. We also have several psychology programs, and our biomedical science programs are also very strong as well. I think that's a very quick and brief introduction about Middlesex.
Yeah, I would love for you to talk about, and I know Tara could speak to this as well, but can you tell us a little bit about the UCAS system and how someone would apply using that system?
Yeah, sure. So UCAS is actually the common app of the UK, I like to say, because it is the platform through which students must apply. Other universities are able to accept direct applications, but if you're applying to multiple British universities, the advice is to apply through UCAS, which limits the number of universities or programs that you can apply for to 5. It begins in around spring, where you can see, for example, next year's programs that will be available, but you can submit them starting September, and then typically the deadline would be mid-January of your senior year. Although if you're applying for medicine, vet science, or to Cambridge or Oxford, you would typically be applying by the 15th of October, which is that extraordinary deadline. So yeah, it's just a form essentially where you have to include your personal information, your academic information. You also have to include one personal statement that will be read by all 5 institutions, as well as one reference letter that you have to nominate. So you nominate your professor, your teacher, and they will then write a reference letter for you. And after that, you can submit your application again, typically by mid-January of your senior year. It's very affordable to apply through UCAS, only about $35 for all 5 universities. And again, this money goes to UCAS. It does not go to the university. So it's not a British thing, so to speak, to charge for applications, which is really nice. I don't know, Tara, if I'm forgetting anything about UCAS, but yeah, that's pretty much UCAS in a nutshell.
I just add about there's something called a personal statement in the UCAS. I always say this is a statement, not an essay. It's very to the point. It's so to the point that this year it's been slightly updated. It used to be about a page essay where we were secretly asking you what course you want to do, why do you want to do the course, and why you're going to be good at it. And now it's 3 questions that literally say what course do you want to do and why, what academic reasons do you think you'll be good, and what extracurricular reasons are you good. My little tip is to use the ABCs when you're writing it. The A is the activity, what did you do? The B is the benefit, what skill, knowledge, or experience did you gain? The C is the course, how does it link to the course? And then the S is like be specific. So name a book that you've read. We're mainly interested in the academics as opposed to the extracurriculars. You can talk about something called supercurricular. So say you want to study law and you're on the debate team, we'd count that as in the kind of supercurricular academic side. Say you want to do law and you're on the drama team, I would put that more in extracurriculars, but want you to link it back. So you're on the drama team, maybe you have experience public speaking, that will be useful in speaking in a courtroom, and you would link it in like that.
That's great. So definitely some different ways than the American application system. And I love that it's actually affordable because I mean, we have students that will, parents will be paying up to $500 for application fees, which just seems crazy. So that's really interesting. But Tara, I remember you speaking to this at IACA, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting because we in America, I feel like put so much impetus on the college essay. And it was just, you get to the point and it's more academic focused, like you mentioned, versus like a narrative about avocado toast or, whatever. I mean, they're like, you try to stand out in just really obscure ways where you're just like, give us the details. Why are you going to be good at this? Why do you want to go to school here? Give us an example. Boom. So that is wonderful. So, and Gabriela, I also agree. I've been to London. I went in 2023 and I learned take the tube. I tried to taxi from Heathrow to the middle of to central London and it took 2 hours. Everybody's like, why didn't you just take the tube? I'm like, I didn't know. I just wasn't sure what to do and never again. So the tube is so efficient, and I love that you can just tap your Apple Watch or just tap your credit card, and you don't even need like an Oyster card anymore, which is fabulous.
That's right. Although students do get a discount if they get the weekly pass or monthly pass on the Oyster card. So it might be convenient to get an Oyster card. But yes, it's super convenient. I love the tube. It takes you everywhere. There's a very good transportation links in London and beyond London as well. And even in Europe, I mean, taking flights or even uh, buses and trains from one city to another, from one country to another, is very cheap, number one, which is why we're all traveling, and very easy and convenient as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the train system in the US is it has somewhat of a negative connotation, but in Europe it is not like that at all. It is very efficient, it's clean, it is quiet, I mean, it's fantastic, a totally different experience. So take the train. It's your best move. Okay, well, thank you so much. Our last presenter, unfortunately, we had another representative from Franklin University who was unable to attend. So Kayla had emailed us like an hour or so ago, and offered up her contact information. So Franklin University is a small American university. It is English speaking as well, like all of these universities are. But as you can see, 9.5 to 1 student faculty ratio, that is very, very small. They are a residential campus, so they do have dormitories on campus, and it is on Lake Lugano, which is about 1 hour north of Milan. So when you're thinking about Franklin University, you can fly into Milan and then get transportation up, so north, to campus. And I believe it's like about 2.5 hours away from Zurich. So you can have either of those options. It was mentioned that their international relations and environmental science is very strong, as well as psychology. And I know the IAC director from Franklin University, she's wonderful, always is giving us great information of some of the programs that they're doing and the initiatives that they're doing. But they have a wonderful summer program. So if you are a high school student that is maybe a sophomore or a junior, and you're thinking, maybe this is for me, I'm not quite sure. Their summer program is excellent. It's affordable, and it was based on environmental science this past year. It was like a sustainability initiative, and it looked really, really cool. So I was able to pass that along to some students that were interested in, doing a little bit of exploration this summer. One of the cool, unique features about Franklin University of Switzerland is they have an academic travel program. And every semester, so out of the 8 semesters, it's a 4-year setup. Every semester, they will be going on a faculty-led trip to another country. That's the goal. So hopefully after your 8 semesters, you'll have 8 different passport stamps. And you'll learn about the location that you're going to be attending throughout the course of the semester. And then, like I said, it'll be a faculty-led trip. So that is built into your tuition, the travel and the expense of the opportunity. And they also, because they are an American university, it is, you can submit your FAFSA and whatnot, and they do have some need-based and merit-based packages. So if you want more information about Franklin University Switzerland, please contact Kayla. She'd be happy to help give more information, and we just roll with it. I think I said it happens sometimes. We have family emergencies or whatnot, and we're sad that they weren't able to join us. But again, if you want more information about them in particular, please reach out to Kayla. So as we've been talking, ladies, I feel like I've just watched the question, like my little notifications on the questions are filling up. So I am going to check those out, and we can get started on those. Whoopsies, gotta go back one. There we go. We'll actually go back. There we go. All right. So I'm going to just ask the question, and then if one of you guys want to just jump in and answer it, that would be great, because I don't really have a direction unless it's particularly calling out one of you. So how does the timeline for submitting international college applications for undergraduate degree programs differ from the application schedule for US colleges?
I can jump in real quick for the AUAs, of the American Universities Abroad, because that timeline is going to be very, comparable to what it is here in the United States. So Some of us have early action deadlines, regular decision usually somewhere around like January, maybe February, and then usually an enrollment deposit confirmation deadline of May 1st. So pretty comparable, doesn't differ very much. So, but Katey, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
I was just going to say the exact same thing. It's very similar. So in the fall, we are coming around to do high school visits, chat with your students, attend college fairs. You all, AUP, and I'm sure AUR has something similar. We encourage them typically to apply by like mid-November. I think we said if you applied by November 15th, this past year, you would get your decision before winter break. So, and then something unique to AUP is if you're admitted, we have a special app so that you can kind of get to know other people who've been admitted and kind of build community before being on campus, which is cool. And then once you're admitted, the timeline is pretty similar for other American universities, I believe. But yep, then FAFSA and all that stuff happens in the spring. And yeah, we help you with your passport and visa stuff over the summer. So.
That's great. Tara, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to jump in. The UK, quite nicely, all the institutions use pretty much the same deadline. So I'll post the hyperlink in the chat in a sec. So we all normally follow the UCAS deadlines. Gabby mentioned the October ones, which is for Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, and veterinary science. And every other course is what we call an equal consideration deadline. It's going to be on January 14th this year. Essentially, everyone who applies, excluding those October courses, by that date will be considered equally, but a lot of institutions will do rolling admissions. So if you apply in October, you may get a response in November, but they will equally evaluate you up until mid-January. Post-January, it's up to the institutions whether they continue to allow applications. A lot of institutions do. We still have some applications open now. And then it depends on the date you get all 5 responses. So within UCAS, you'll get your responses from universities, and it will depend on the last day you got your response when you have to reply to everyone by. Typically, you have to reply within the spring, but UCAS will give you your date depending on when you got your last one. And then when you're applying for visas, that typically also happens over the summer as well. Normally about up to the earliest will be between 3 to 6 months before, but most typically over the summer.
That's great. And Monica had asked a similar question about what does the application process look like for the international American universities. So I feel like we have covered both of those. Thank you very much. We had a question about are your universities test optional? Or maybe you can just discuss, I think, Cait, I think you mentioned that you're completely test blind, so not necessary to submit a test, but if you would all be able to speak to how you use standardized testing in the process, and we're talking ACT or SAT tests.
I can start. So AUP is also test optional. We have been before the pandemic, and the goal is to remain test optional. How we are going to be using it is it's kind of a piece to the puzzle when kind of seeing how you would fit into our campus. So we're really using a holistic approach when looking at the applicant. And let's say you scored really, really high on the ACT or SAT, but maybe some of your other, sometimes students are really great in English and history, but maybe math and science is a little bit lower. Sometimes those test scores kind of are like, all right, maybe they're just not the best at testing, but they've done really well, in their ACT on English or something like that. So it's more for AUP, it's just a piece of the puzzle and figuring out who you are as a student and how you would fit on campus and how you would bring value to a classroom.
All right, our London friends, any testing
Yeah, thank
information?
you. So we're a little special. We only require at least 2 AP exams for the STEM program. So if your student is applying for STEM, they need 2 AP exams that are related to that major, right? And the minimum score is 3. If they have a 3.2 GPA or above and they're not applying for a STEM program, completely test optional, no worries, 3.2 GPA will do. But if students fail to meet that 3.2 GPA criteria, we're able to admit them if they have SATs or ACTs. So we use those testings to like supplement their GPA if it fails, with the exception again of STEM, which requires at least 2 AP exams. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but we also have on our website a USA country page where all of those things are detailed out. Otherwise, you can email me directly for any specific cases and I can filter them for you.
If you do not take an AP course, does that prohibit you from applying to your university and pursuing STEM?
That's a great question. It might. So it's either an AP exam or perhaps a college level class. Say, for instance, you're applying for biomedical science, you're going to need AP chemistry, AP biology. But if you didn't, and instead you have dual accreditation with a local college, then that would do. So we do look at other things, but typically it would be AP or college level classes. If a student, worst case scenario, doesn't have those, then yes, they could be potentially just not admitted to the university. We would then advise them to perhaps do 1 year of college at any local college and get those AP equivalents in chemistry and biology, for example, and then they're able to be admitted the next semester with us.
Okay, great.
And then I'll follow on from that one. At London Met, we kind of have two pathways. So if you do have standardized tests, APs, SATs, ACTs, we'll look at that, and that will be how we'll admit you. If you didn't take any standardized tests, then we'll look at your GPA and something we call the USA Alternative Assessment. Essentially, it's an assessment we provide to you. So it will slightly depend on what course you've selected, but typically it may be an additional essay, it may be a critical review of something within your subject area. I want to add to this about like how the UK works. The UK is very upfront about what its entry requirements are. Most universities will, as Gabby say, post it on the website, and when you meet those, there's a strong indication that we'll get in. The issue with that is being so transparent means we don't have as much flexibility, which is one of the highs and lows of the kind of UK system. The other one to mention is, and I know my students will be looking at undergrad, but also looking at transferring. This is definitely becoming more and more popular. So doing like an associate's or something in the US and then transferring. UK universities are getting much better at how they're managing this. So for a US, typically if you've completed an associate's degree in the US, we will see that as the equivalent of our first year. We may review you for advanced entry to our second year. So then you'll be able to finish your second, it's obviously only 3 years. So 2 years community college or wherever you took your associates, and 2 years to do your finish off your bachelor's. And that's something that the UK is definitely opening up to a lot more.
That could definitely be a cost-saving measure as well. If you really have your heart set on it, but 3 years seems out of the question, if you can get ahead a little bit. And I would recommend, if that's something that you're interested in, is just talking to someone like Tara and making sure, she could probably put you in touch with whoever would be evaluating transcripts. Again, to just make sure that this is going to be a seamless process. You don't want to commit a year or 2 years to getting an associate's degree and then nothing transfers or you didn't take the right stuff. So being, very mindful of mapping all of this out before you just think that this is all going to work. Just doing that due diligence would probably be very key. Okay, so we have a few more minutes. I had 2 more questions that were just kind of, either or sent to us previously or things I wanted to check on. But let's talk a little bit about healthcare. Because I think that is something that, again, if you're sending your student abroad for the first time, maybe they're a seasoned traveler, maybe they're not. How does that work? Are they covered by their American plan? Gabby, you're ready to go. So can you tell us a little bit about, you're like raising your hand. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Sorry, I was too quick.
That's
So
okay.
in the UK, we have universal health care. So when people pay their taxes, part of them go towards healthcare, right? Now, since students haven't been living in the UK or been paying taxes in the UK, then they need to contribute a certain amount. And that contribution is paid for in advance. It's paid in the moment in which they get their visa. So someone going to the UK for 2 years is going to pay slightly less of a contribution than those going for 3 years, or if you're doing a master's degree, which is just 1 year versus 3 years, that's going to look differently. Now, since that is paid for in advance, by the time you arrive in the UK, you have all of the rights healthcare wise to go to a hospital for emergency care or to go to any appointments. You have to register with your general practitioner as soon as you arrive. And if hopefully you'll never need to go to the doctor, but if and when you do, then that's totally paid for and you're never going to get a bill. So I think it's pretty neat, honestly, and especially for families and parents who are concerned with their children's medications, they can continue all of that in the UK. Just make sure to have that prescription in scientific language so that the doctor, their GP in the UK, is able to continue the medication from there.
And would you be able to help with that if a parent and a family came to you and said, like, our student has a, XYZ medical issue, they need to have steady doses of insulin, or they need to have a particular medication, like, can you have a service on campus or, a contact on campus that would help them kind of transition that stuff to make sure it's taken care of and they're not like lost for 2 weeks without their medication?
Well, I mean, we're happy to be the student's first point of contact, but to be completely honest, that is so streamlined that we rarely have to intervene. So students arrive in the UK, the first thing that they're advised to do, apart from opening a bank account and all of that, that's what we do on our welcome week, is they're instructed on how to register with their GP. And it's typically the one that's nearest to where their accommodation is, but they must register with the GP. And then all of that is kind of sorted in a very streamlined and easy way.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, American universities, how do you guys handle healthcare?
I
Take it away,
think
Fran.
you can go,
for it.
Cait.
Oh, okay. So Italy's a little bit different. So students on visas are eligible for national coverage, but Italian national coverage actually doesn't cover emergency services. So it's a requirement that students purchase kind of an additional level of coverage. We recommend one that's called CISI. It's $88 per month, and it really is comprehensive for that additional layer that they need. So really affordable for our students compared, certainly coming from the United States. And then they'll be all set. In terms of sort of continuing medication, we actually do have a psychiatrist that students can schedule appointments with at AUR to just kind of help them maybe translate their medicine to Italy, because in the EU there are different regulations on drugs than there are in the United States. So typically our students who are on regular prescriptions, we'll put them in touch with a psychiatrist prior to arrival just to make sure that's all squared away. The psychiatrist can write them a new script that they can then fill in Italy. So we do have also an on-campus English-speaking doctor that our students can schedule appointments with. So lots of different options, an international English-speaking hospital that's around the corner from our campus. So our students are all set in many different ways at AUR.
Great, thank you.
And for AUP, it's just a little bit different. So we have national or healthcare coverage in France. You have to pay a fee if you've not paid taxes year over year in France. So most of the students have not, especially our American students. So it is about $450, and that will cover them for the year. So if they're only coming for a semester, it's still the same price as it is for the year. And that will get them emergency services as well as a regular doctor if they need it. Something really cool is we also have a doctor on campus. We have 2 nurses on campus as well. So let's say you have a sore throat, you don't know what you need to do, you can go see them and they can either tell you, all right, you're going to go here. And sometimes there are students who can come with you if you don't feel comfortable speaking French at that level yet. Or we do have American or English speaking doctors available as well. Something also that's kind of nice is on the back of everyone's student ID, there's an international SOS number. So let's say it's like on the weekend, you're sick, you don't know what to do, you can call this number. They can tell you where, like, do you need emergency services? They can kind of talk you through it and triage it and get you connected with, a hospital if you need, or emergency services. So
Great. Thank you. Well, I love that it sounds very easy and streamlined. And I think that's like a stressor for an American parent that would be sending their student is, especially it feels like way more convoluted than it needs to be here in the States than it is where you all, where your institutions are located. And then my last question, this should be an easy one. You can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, is do you follow the same academic calendar as the US? So traditionally August to May. Okay. The American universities, yes. London Met. You gave me the
They were
thumbs
about
down.
a month behind. So we start mid-September, we end early to mid-June.
Okay.
Everything's just shifted back about a month.
Okay. Very good.
Pretty similar.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time. This was wonderful and very insightful. And hopefully, the students and the families and the professionals that are watching this have a greater insight. And now they have their contact information. So thank you again for your time and for connecting with me. I really appreciate it. And have a wonderful rest of your week and a great rest of your summer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.